The screen is dark, but the air is thick with a sound that vibrates through your chest. It is the rhythmic, heavy drumming of water hitting broad leaves, a relentless downpour that defines the existence of this place. Then, a sudden flash of lightning tears through the obsidian sky, momentarily illuminating the dense, interlocking canopy of the Amazonas. In that strobe-light second, we see it. Not a king on a throne, but a predator in a desperate struggle. A jaguar, the undisputed monarch of this emerald realm, isn't prowling through the ferns. It is swimming. Its powerful golden shoulders, marked with black rosettes, heave against a rising, turgid current. The water is brown and thick with debris, a swirling mass of mud and branches that threatens to pull even the strongest beneath its surface. The jaguar's eyes glow with an intense, prehistoric light, reflecting the chaos of the river. It isn't hunting, it is simply trying to reach the next bank. In the Amazon, survival isn't an accomplishment you achieve and then rest upon. It is a temporary state of being, a fleeting moment of equilibrium in a landscape that is constantly trying to reclaim everything it gives. This is the green purgatory. It is a world where the earth itself seems to breathe in water and exhale fire. Spanning over 6 million square kilometers of unforgiving complexity, the Amazon is less a forest and more a giant, breathing biological machine. It is a place of absolute beauty, but also of absolute indifference. The scale is almost impossible to comprehend a green ocean that stretches across borders, harboring secrets that have remained unchanged for millions of years. But within this vastness, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Every creature, from the smallest leaf-cutter ant to the apex jaguar, is born into a debt of energy. They must pay this debt every single second of their lives. Every movement, every hunt, every breath requires a calorie that must be fought for. In the Amazon, to be still is to starve, but to move too much is to exhaust yourself to death. It is a brutal, mathematical balance that dictates the rhythm of every heartbeat beneath the canopy. We often imagine the wilderness as a place of serene beauty, a quiet garden of Eden where animals coexist in a peaceful balance. That is a lie. There is no peace in nature. There is only the pause between struggles. The silence you hear in the forest isn't the silence of tranquility. It's the silence of a hunter waiting for the perfect moment or a prey animal holding its breath to avoid being seen. This is a three-dimensional battlefield where threats come from the sky, the ground, the water, and even from within the very plants that provide oxygen. The landscape itself is a living antagonist, shifting its shape with the seasons, transforming solid ground into a labyrinth of submerged trees. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. This connection we share across the globe is part of our own survival strategy, much like the complex networks that keep this forest alive. The sheer complexity of this ecosystem is what allows it to endure, yet it is also what makes it so fragile for the individuals within it. The Amazon doesn't care about the single jaguar struggling in the current or the bird lost in the storm. It cares about the system. It is a cycle of extremes that never stops turning. As the sun begins to rise, casting long golden fingers through the rising mist, the forest reveals its true face. The humidity is so thick you can almost chew it, and the air is filled with the scent of wet earth and decaying vegetation, the smell of life turning back into soil. But as the light grows stronger, a realization settles in. The greatest threat to the inhabitants of this green world isn't the predator you can see with its claws and teeth. It isn't the venomous snake hiding in the leaf litter or the eagle circling above. The greatest threat is the landscape itself. It is a shifting, pulsing entity that is about to undergo a radical transformation. The rules changed. The transition begins not with a roar, but with a persistent, creeping silence. The river, which the locals call the River Sea, starts to swell, fed by melting snow from Andes and the relentless rains. This isn't a sudden flash flood. It is something far more profound and methodical. It is the flood pulse, the annual heartbeat of the Amazon that dictates the life and death of every organism. For several months each year, the boundaries between earth and water dissolve. The river expands its banks, reclaiming the land, eventually drowning an area the size of the United Kingdom under sediment-rich water. This is the Varzea, the flooded forest, a surreal landscape where ancient trees are submerged under 15 meters of water. Here, the foundations of life are inverted, and the rules of the jungle are rewritten in fluid strokes. Every drop of rain contributes to this shifting world. For land-dwelling inhabitants, this transformation is a slow-motion catastrophe. The forest floor, once a place of stability, vanishes. Insects, rodents, and heavy-bodied mammals are forced upward in a scramble for dry ground. They migrate to the high ground, narrow strips of land known as restingas. But these refugees find no sanctuary. As dry land shrinks, the density of life increases to a breaking point. Competition for every square inch of space and scrap of food becomes lethal. Predators and prey are forced into an intimacy that defies nature. A jaguar and a tapir might find themselves sharing a narrow ridge of mud, separated only by thorny brush and the sheer exhaustion of the struggle. On these islands of survival, the debt of energy becomes an immediate crisis. There is no room for error, and the tension in the air is a vibrating chord of survival, humming beneath the canopy. It is a silent war of positions. While the terrestrial world shrinks, others find ways to adapt to this vertical migration. Spiders, usually the masters of leaf litter, weave intricate webs high above the swirling currents, dangling between branches that were once summits, but are now mere inches above the water. Monkeys, the true acrobats of the Amazon, find their world expanded and complicated. They must become expert navigators of the high canopy, moving with cautious precision as the fruit-bearing trees they rely on are now surrounded by an abyss of tea-colored water. Their social structures are tested. A missed jump or a broken branch doesn't mean a fall to the earth, but a plunge into a watery world filled with hidden, hungry dangers of the jungle. The forest floor becomes a memory of the past. Deep beneath the surface of this flooded forest, a strange and beautiful symbiosis takes place. The tambaqui, a massive fish with jaws strong enough to crack nuts, moves through submerged branches like a silent phantom. It is here to participate in one of the most incredible survival strategies on the planet. As the trees drop their seeds and fruits into the water, the tambaqui is there to catch them. This isn't just a meal, it is a partnership. The fish gains the fat it needs to survive the dry season, and in return, it acts as the forest's primary gardener. The seeds pass through its digestive system and are deposited far from the parent tree, ensuring the next generation takes root. In the Amazon, the river doesn't just sustain the trees. The trees feed the river. The trees wait for the return of the sun. Yet, for every peaceful interaction, there is a shadow waiting in the murky depths. For the black caiman, the flood is not a challenge, but a grand, seasonal banquet. This titan of the submerged roots is the master of the Varzea. With its dark hide blending perfectly into the shadows of drowned trees, it waits with prehistoric patience. For land animals navigating the branches, the caiman is an invisible executioner. It uses the rising water to access areas once out of reach, patrolling the submerged corridors of the forest like a ghost. The flood gives the caiman the ultimate advantage, the ability to strike from a world where its prey has no footing. The water gives life, but soon it will inevitably take it all back. And when the river retreats, a new nightmare begins. While the world below is swallowed by the rising tide of the Varzea, the focus shifts upward into the emerald cathedral of the high canopy. Here, the struggle for survival takes on a vertical dimension, a three-dimensional chessboard where the sky is not a limit, but a hunting ground. Emerging from the mist like a prehistoric specter is the harpy eagle. With a wingspan that can reach 2 meters and talons longer than a grizzly bear's claws, she is the undisputed sovereign of the Amazonian air. She does not circle like a vulture, riding thermals in lazy loops. She is a ghost in the leaves, a surgical strike waiting to materialize. Her target is hidden within the dense tapestry of vines and epiphytes, a creature whose very existence is a testament to the power of doing nothing. The three-toed sloth moves with a glacial deliberation that defies the frantic pace of the jungle. In a world where speed is often equated with survival, the sloth has gambled its life on the opposite strategy, the discipline of stillness. Its fur is a living ecosystem, hosting algae that provide a greenish camouflage, making it look like nothing more than a cluster of dead leaves or a mossy knot on a branch. It exists in the shadows of the canopy, a ghost in slow motion. But the harpy eagle is not fooled by the absence of movement. While most predators are triggered by the frantic twitch of a fleeing rodent, the eagle has evolved to see beyond the obvious. She sees patterns. She recognizes the silhouette that shouldn't be there, the slight disruption in the geometry of the branches. The eagle launches from her perch, a silent explosion of feathers and muscle. She navigates the dense network of branches with a precision that seems impossible for her size, folding her wings to dive through narrow gaps. The sloth, sensing a shift in the air or perhaps catching a glimpse of a darkening shadow, remains frozen. It is a battle of nerves. If the sloth moves, it confirms its identity. If it stays still, it might remain a ghost. But the harpy eagle's strike is absolute. Her talons, capable of crushing bone with several hundred pounds of pressure per square inch, reach out. There is no roar, no warning, only the sound of wind rushing through feathers, and then a dull, heavy impact that vibrates through the trunk of the tree. In an instant, the silence returns to the canopy, heavier than before. The predator has collected its debt of energy, leaving behind only a few drifting feathers and the indifferent rustle of the leaves. But the vertical battlefield is only one layer of this complex machine. Below the high branches, where the water begins to kiss the bark of the trees, another titan reigns. The jaguar, the third largest cat in the world, is a creature of contradictions. Unlike most of its feline cousins, the jaguar does not fear the water. It embraces it. It is a versatile phantom that moves with equal lethality through the thick underbrush and the murky currents of the flooded forest. While the eagle dominates the air, the jaguar represents the absolute apex of the forest floor, even when that floor is submerged. It is a creature of immense power, possessing the strongest bite of any cat, capable of piercing the thick skulls of its prey or the armored hides of the reptiles that share its domain. On the muddy banks, where the rising water meets the shrinking land, the jaguar encounters its most formidable rival, the black caiman. This is the ultimate clash of the Amazon's titans, a confrontation that has played out for millions of years. The caiman, a massive prehistoric survivor, lurks at the water's edge, its eyes barely breaking the surface. It is the master of the ambush. However, the jaguar is a tactician. It watches from the shadows, calculating the risks. To hunt a caiman is to dance with a dragon. The cat must strike the back of the skull with surgical precision. For one slip of a paw on the slick mud, or a mistimed leap into the water, could turn the hunter into the hunted. While these titans struggle, the smallest inhabitants are building their eternal empires. While the clash of titans echoes through the flooded corridors of the Vazia, a more disciplined war is being waged in the shadows of the leaf litter. Here, size is irrelevant, and the true masters of the Amazonian soil reveal themselves in a world of vibrating mandibles and pheromone-driven logic. These are the leafcutter ants, members of a society so sophisticated and ancient that it has refined the art of survival into a collective machine. To look at a single ant is to see nothing but a speck of industry, but to witness the colony is to see a living, breathing superorganism that reshapes the very landscape it inhabits. They are the forest's primary consumers, moving more earth and vegetation than almost any other creature. Yet their strength lies not in their mandibles alone, but in their capacity for total, selfless cooperation. Day and night, a tireless procession moves across the forest floor. These ants create vast highways, clearing every obstacle to ensure a smooth flow of green fragments. They use their serrated mandibles like high-frequency saws to slice through tough tropical leaves. But these leaves are not for their own consumption. The ants cannot digest cellulose. Instead, they are the world's first and most efficient farmers. Deep underground, in subterranean cathedrals that can span 30 feet across, they maintain delicate fungal gardens. The leaf fragments are cleaned, chewed into a pulp, and used as a substrate for a specific type of fungus. This mushroom is the colony's only source of food, a fragile life form that requires constant care and temperature regulation. It is a relationship of absolute dependency. The fungus cannot survive without the ant's labor, and the ants cannot survive without the fungus's nutrients. However, even this fortress of discipline is not immune to the horrors of biological warfare. From the humid air, a silent, microscopic enemy descends, the cordyceps fungus. It begins as an invisible spore that attaches itself to the chitinous exoskeleton of a foraging ant. Using specialized enzymes, the fungus bores through the ant's armor and enters the bloodstream. What follows is a biological horror story that would seem like fiction if it weren't so chillingly real. The fungus does not immediately kill its host. Instead, it begins to consume the ant from the inside out, sparing the vital organs to keep the vessel moving while it hijacks the nervous system. The ant's behavior begins to change. It stops following the pheromone trails of its sisters. It begins to twitch, its movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. The fungus is now the pilot, directing the ant to leave the safety of the colony and climb upward into the understory. Guided by the chemical commands of the parasite, the zombie ant reaches a specific height where the humidity and temperature are perfect for fungal growth. It finds a leaf and, in its final act of bodily autonomy, sinks its mandibles into a central vein in a permanent, calcified death grip. The ant dies, but the fungus is just getting started. A long, dark stalk erupts from the base of the ant's head, growing slowly until it is ready to release its own spores. From this elevated position, the fungus can rain down death upon the trails below, potentially wiping out the entire colony. It is a war of attrition, where the parasite seeks to turn the colony's own density against itself. But the superorganism has its own defenses. The ants are masters of biological security. Specialist workers constantly patrol the colony, using their antennae to sniff out the chemical signatures of infection. If an ant is detected carrying the cordyceps spore, the response is swift and brutal. The infected individual is often physically carried away from the nest and exiled, sacrificed for the survival of the many. It is a cold, calculated logic, a life for a kingdom. They will even prune the fungal gardens, removing any trace of contamination with surgical precision. This constant state of vigilance is the price of their longevity, a silent battle that has been fought for millions of years in the damp darkness of the forest floor. The sound of these millions of mandibles, a soft, rhythmic white noise, forms the backdrop of the Amazonian day. But as the sun's cycle begins to shift and the atmospheric pressure changes, the environment prepares to test these empires in a different way. The relentless rain that fueled the Great Flood begins to falter. The thick, saturated air starts to lose its grip on the moisture. On the horizon, the deep greens of the canopy begin to take on a dusty, muted hue as the water level in the rivers starts its long, agonizing retreat. The humidity, which once protected the smallest of lives, is dropping rapidly. The forest is a war of attrition, but as the water disappears, the war turns into a scorched earth policy. The season of fire is approaching, and every creature, from the smallest ant to the largest titan, must prepare for the trial of the drying mud. The transition is subtle at first, marked by a sky that trades its heavy grey blankets for a searing, cloudless blue. The sun, once a filtered glow through the canopy, now becomes a relentless judge, baking the exposed mud of the riverbanks until it cracks into a geometric mosaic. The river sea, that once stretched across thousands of square miles, begins to contract, pulling back from the trunks of the flooded forests with a slow, sucking sound that echoes the forest's thirst. As the water recedes, it leaves behind a graveyard of missed opportunities and desperate struggles. This is the beginning of the dry season, a period of forced migration where the abundance of the flood pulse is replaced by a brutal competition for the remaining liquid life. The vast lagoons that once felt like endless oceans are now shrinking into isolated, shallow puddles. Within these muddy traps, the hierarchy of the river is being violently rearranged. This is the heart of the piranha paradox. For months, these fish have been the undisputed terrors of the submerged trees, their razor-sharp teeth making them the scavengers and hunters that keep the river clean. But as the oxygen leaves the warming, stagnant water, the killers become the victims. Thousands of piranhas find themselves trapped in drying pools, their gills laboring against the thickening silt. They flip and thrash in a frantic, silver dance, but the sun is an uncompromising creditor. What was once a lethal predator is now a buffet for the vultures and caimans circling the shrinking perimeter. The very water that sheltered them is now boiling them alive, turning their aquatic sanctuary into a mass grave of scales and bones. But the drying mud is only the first stage of this grueling trial. Above the ground, the lack of rain transforms the Emerald Cathedral into a tinderbox. In the Amazon, fire is an anomaly, a foreign invader that the forest's inhabitants are not biologically equipped to handle. Whether ignited by a rare strike of dry lightning or the creeping fingers of man-made clearing at the forest's edge, the smell of smoke begins to drift through the understory. It is a scent that triggers an ancient primal fear in every living thing. The humidity, which usually acts as a cooling shield, has vanished, leaving the leaves brittle and the bark dry as parchment. The orange glow of distant flames flickers through the dense foliage at night, a ghostly light that signals the destruction of habitats that took centuries to build. The air becomes heavy with ash, and the vibrant songs of the birds are replaced by a heavy, expectant silence. The irony of the landscape becomes palpable as the heat intensifies. The land animals, who spent the last months fleeing the rising floods to find safety on higher ground, are now forced into a desperate retreat back toward the very water they feared. The jaguars, tapirs, and even the smallest rodents must navigate a maze of scorching heat and suffocating haze. They move toward the river channels, the only places where the cycle has not completely stalled. The jungle floor, once a damp carpet of life, now crackles underfoot, echoing with the sound of a million lives on the move. The rhythm of the forest is breaking, pushed to its limits by a climate that is shifting faster than evolution can keep up. Modern droughts are longer, the fires more frequent, and the ancient pulse of the Amazon is stuttering under the pressure of a changing world. This is no longer just a natural cycle. It is a test of resilience. In this heat, the secrets of the forest are revealed. As the water vanishes, the mud dries and hardens, forming a landscape of parched earth that stretches for miles. This cracked earth holds the history of those who did not make it, the bleached skeletons of the weak and the unlucky, preserved in the silt. But beneath the surface, something else remains. In the deepest parts of the drying channels, where the mud is still thick and cool, a predator that has survived for millions of years is waiting. It is a creature that does not fear the drought, for it has seen the rivers rise and fall since the dawn of time itself. The sun's relentless siege has finally forced the great river to surrender its secrets, exposing vast, golden scars across its winding path. These are the sandbanks, ephemeral islands born from the lowest ebb of the Amazon's seasonal heartbeat. For most of the year, these lands simply do not exist, buried under several meters of churning brown water. But now, they become the stage for one of the most concentrated and desperate spectacles of life in the entire basin. For the giant river turtle, these sun-baked stretches represent the only hope for the survival of their ancient lineage. Driven by an ancient biological clock synchronized with the falling tides, thousands of these armored giants emerge from the depths, dragging their heavy shells across the scorching grit to deposit their legacy in the earth. These sandy platforms, though fleeting, are essential for the continuation of life in the River Sea. It is a high-stakes gamble against the inevitable turning of the seasons. The mothers labor primarily under the protective cover of moonlight, digging deep sandy chambers to protect their eggs from the searing, lethal heat of the tropical day. But the sandbanks are not a sanctuary. They are a beacon for every opportunist in the forest. Black vultures sit like dark, patient sentinels on the bleached driftwood, their sharp eyes fixed on any sign of movement. The heat shimmering off the sand creates a mirage that hides the approach of death until it is far too late. Jaguars venture boldly into the open, their heavy paws leaving deep impressions in the sand as they search for a vulnerable mother or a shallow nest. The turtle must time her mission with absolute precision. The eggs require the heat of the dry season to incubate, yet the hatchlings must reach the water before the rains return to drown the nests. Weeks of agonizing tension pass under the burning sun until the sand itself begins to move. It starts as a subtle vibration, a collective pulse beneath the surface that gradually intensifies until the dunes appear to liquefy and boil. This is the boiling sand phenomenon, a survival strategy rooted in the power of sheer numbers. Hundreds of thousands of tiny hatchlings erupt from the earth simultaneously, a frantic, flapping wave of life rushing toward the water's edge. Their tiny flippers work with a desperate, frantic energy, driven by a primal instinct to reach the safety of the current. They do not have the luxury of stealth or defense. Their only hope is predator saturation. By emerging all at once, they overwhelm the physical capacity of the hunters. A vulture can only gorge itself on so many. A jaguar can only strike so many times before the tide of life passes. For every hatchling lost to a snapping beak, dozens more vanish into the river. It is a brutal arithmetic, a necessary sacrifice of the individual to ensure the species. However, the water is no longer the sanctuary it once was. Waiting in the shallows is a predator that has turned the murky depths into a private hunting ground, the pink river dolphin, or boto. To the local people, the boto is a creature of deep folklore, a shapeshifter that transitions between worlds. In reality, it is an apex marvel, perfectly adapted to a world where light is a stranger. While their ocean-dwelling cousins enjoy the clarity of the blue sea, the boto has evolved to master the white and black waters of the Amazon, where visibility is often less than an arm's length. Its unique pink hue, the result of scar tissue, and a complex network of blood vessels near the skin, makes it a ghost-like presence in the tea-colored currents. The boto does not rely on its eyes to find a meal. In the labyrinthine maze of submerged roots and the thick silt stirred up by the retreating river, sight is more of a liability than an asset. Instead, it navigates through the power of sound. It emits a series of high-frequency clicks that bounce off the environment, creating a vivid, three-dimensional acoustic map in its mind. It can see a single fish hiding behind a fallen log or track the heartbeat of a hatchling through several feet of opaque mud. This echolocation is so sophisticated that the dolphin can weave through a dense underwater forest of thorns at high speed without ever grazing a branch. It is the ultimate hunter of the gloom, a reminder that the most successful survivors are those who have learned to perceive what others cannot. Imagine navigating a maze of jagged roots and hidden thorns in total darkness, knowing that somewhere in that void, a predator is watching you with sound. You are the one being hunted in a world where your own senses fail you. The boto is the master of this murky transition, the shadow in the machine of the river. But even the boto's reign is subject to the greater rhythm of the atmosphere. The dry season has reached its absolute limit. The air is now so heavy it feels like a physical weight against the skin, and the sharp metallic scent of ozone begins to cut through the smell of dried mud. The cycle is almost complete. The sky is darkening into a bruised, electric purple, and the first heavy drop of the new season is about to fall. The first drop of rain strikes the parched, cracked mud with the force of a percussion cap, breaking a silence that had grown heavy enough to crush the spirit. It is followed by another, and then a million more, a sudden and violent baptism that transforms the scorched air into a thick, misty veil. The scent of petrichor, the perfume of the earth's relief, rises from the soil, signaling to every creature that the trial of fire has been endured. It is a violent, necessary cleansing of the 6 million square kilometers that define this unforgiving landscape. The Amazon does not simply receive the rain, it consumes it. Within hours, the parched earth begins to blush with new shoots, and the shrunken arteries of the river begin to pulse with a renewed, muddy vigor. This is the turning of the great wheel, the moment when the green purgatory resets its clock and prepares for the return of the water. As we look back, we see a tapestry woven from the threads of countless individual struggles. We witnessed the jaguar navigating the flooded Varzea, hunting in a world where the ground itself had vanished. We watched the black caiman, the ancient titan of the silt, wait for the moment when the receding waters would deliver a desperate feast to its jaws. High above the chaos, the harpy eagle maintained its silent vigil over a three-dimensional battlefield, while the sloth survived by mastering the art of being nothing at all. We saw the boto, ghosts of the murky currents, guided by sound alone through a maze of thorns. We descended into the micro-kingdoms, where leafcutter ants waged a war of discipline against the nightmare of the cordyceps fungus, proving that even the smallest lives are governed by a brutal, necessary logic. Every character we encountered is a vital component in a biological machine of staggering proportions. The Amazon does not prioritize the individual. It is a system that demands a constant tithe of energy. In this wilderness, death is not a tragedy, but a transaction. The nutrients from a fallen predator sustain the roots of the trees that will provide fruit for the tambaki. No piece of matter is wasted. Every feather and scale is a payment back to the forest floor. The struggle of the giant river turtle to reach the sandbanks and the frantic race of its hatchlings against the vultures are gears in a machine refining itself for millions of years. It is a world born into a debt of energy, where every breath is borrowed and every life is eventually reclaimed to fuel the next cycle. The Amazon is the regulator of the global climate, a massive heat engine dictating the weather patterns of entire hemispheres. It exhales the oxygen we breathe and generates the flying rivers, vast aerial currents of moisture that travel thousands of miles to water the crops of distant nations. Its survival is our survival. This is the heartbeat of Earth, and we are listening to its struggle under the weight of change. The struggles we have seen, the hunt, the flood, the fire, are the internal processes of a living entity that keeps our planet habitable. Yet, As the rhythm of the seasons begins to falter under the weight of human influence, we must ask ourselves a difficult question. We marvel at the resilience of the jaguar, but are we becoming the one environmental shift that these master survivors cannot overcome? The forest is a mirror. In its relentless drive to endure, it reflects our own fragile place in the web of life. As the storm grows and the canopy shakes under the downpour, the cycle enters its next phase. The sandbanks are already being reclaimed by the rising tide. The jaguars move to higher ground, and the boto prepares to swim once more through the treetops. The Amazon remains a place of infinite complexity and beauty, where the end is always just a new beginning. The water is rising again, drowning the scars of the dry season and erasing the tracks of the hunted. The great green heart of the continent beats once more, pumping life through its winding veins. From the perspective of a single leaf to the vast, swirling clouds seen from space, the message is the same. The struggle is eternal. The debt must be paid. The cycle never ends.